Hey, what's up, everyone? The Dan Sandwich here, and today I am talking about concept cars. Now, for as long as I have been interested in cars, concept cars have always fascinated. I remember being like a kid at like the dentist's office and looking at car magazines, seeing all the cool concept cars from whatever car show was happening at that time. Always being really fascinated with all the futuristic designs and technology that we wouldn't end up seeing in most of the production models, but would still be interesting to look at going into the future. And since I have been playing a lot of automation, I've realized like, hey, I can go back and look at some of these old concept cars and make them happen in the game. So that's kind of what I had in mind for a kind of a new series, or I don't know how many of these I'm going to do. But going and taking these concept cars that I find interesting for whatever reason, either they are vastly different from the model that actually came out, or they never saw the light of day in a realistic fashion, and I wanted to kind of represent them in game the best that I could. So today, the vehicle I'm going to be looking at is the original concept for the Ford Mustang. Now, this is something that I really didn't know much about, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of my viewers didn't know much about either, because it is a car from 1962, so it's over 80 years old now, which is crazy to think about. What makes this concept car notable to me is that the Ford Mustang is an enduring icon in American car history. It's also probably one of the most popular vehicles ever made, but the concept for the original Ford Mustang was drastically different than the model that actually came out. And this is what I'm talking about here. So you can see that wedge-shaped design, very different than what came out. It's a roadster, a two-seat roadster, instead of the 2+2 seat coupe that came out originally as well. And there's a few other very fascinating aspects of this vehicle that you can't just look at from the outside. No, most notably is where the engine is positioned and what kind of engine that is. This Ford Mustang concept was powered by a mid-engine V4. That's right, a V4, which is exceedingly rare in any vehicle, especially at the time. And even mid-engine cars at the time were very rare as well. The other very interesting thing about this car is that it supposedly weighed less than 1,500 pounds. So this was a lightweight mid-engine four-cylinder sports car in the 1960s. Think of this as like a proto Lotus Elise or Toyota MR2. Very, very different, especially at the time, and especially from a company like Ford, and especially when you consider this was the original concept for the Mustang. Imagine if this was the car that they ended up making going forward, how different the Mustang would be today. However, Ford deemed this prototype too expensive to actually put into production, and so they went through the redesign process and came out with the car that we know today. But like I said, I decided to see what it would be like if I could recreate this car to the best of my abilities in automation. And this is what I was able to achieve. Now, full disclosure, I am not a modder. I don't know much about modding cars and stuff into automation. So if someone is watching this and does know how to make like mod bodies and stuff like that for automation, they probably could have done a more accurate representation of this concept. But I had to kind of work within the limits of my capabilities and the capabilities of the game. And this is, I feel like, a pretty decent representation of the car, the concept in the game. Now, there's a few obvious details that I'm missing. Chief among those being I'm missing the stripe that goes down the middle of the car. So that is because I kind of had to add a bit more body work up here to make the cockpit fit, realistically as well. And the way that the decals and things like that mold to the body didn't really work. So I couldn't get that stripe to look right to me at all. And I don't have like the Ford Mustang logo. I didn't have accurate representation of that in the game either, so I decided to skip that. But everything else is pretty close. Again, the other big thing that's different here is obviously there's no support in automation for V4 engines. So the engine that I went with is a Boxer 4. So pretty similar to, a V4. You still have 2 cylinders on each side. It's still a 1.9 liter engine like the original concept. It does still have 104 horsepower like the original concept. So it's as close as I could get it within the limitations of the game. And this is the car body I went with here. The other thing that's a little bit different too is that the original concept had a 90-inch wheelbase. This is 84.5 inches basically. So a little bit shorter wheelbase than the original concept as well. But again, like, this is pretty close, I feel like, to what the original concept was. Oh, and the other big difference too is I was not able to get this car under 1,500 pounds. Pretty close. 1,600 isn't far from that, obviously, but I tried everything I could think of. I went with a basic interior instead of like a sport interior. I removed all the safety from the car. I cranked the quality settings on everything to 15 to get it as close to that weight as I possibly could. But I still just couldn't get there. So again, it's fairly limited by what I was able to do in the grand scheme of things, but I got it as close as I could. And I feel like I did a fairly good job representing the car the best way that I could possible. Again, if somebody's watching this and has the skill and capability of doing like a mod body for this, that would be super cool. But for representing a concept car from real life into automation, I think I did a pretty decent job. And I'm really happy with the way this turned out. I like the blue interior. Again, very, very close to what I could get of the concept car. Not a ton of pictures of the interior exist because they only actually ever made 2 of these. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I just was really fascinated by this concept car. Again, very, very different from the Ford Mustang that we know today. But yeah, I wanted to see if I could recreate it in automation. I think I did a pretty decent job. But yeah, of course, I want to take this into BeamNG, give it a test drive around the automation test track, and test it out the same way as I do all of my other automation builds. And so yeah, let's go ahead and do that. All right, so here we have it, the Ford Mustang 1 concept as created by me in automation in BeamNG. We are at the West Coast USA map. Feel like a good place to have a nice cruise in a 60s roadster. Yeah, as you'd expect, it has a little bit of oversteer. Again, pretty similar to what you'd get in those other cars I mentioned, which would have been like a kind of a spiritual successor, like the Lotus Elise and Toyota MR2. It has a similar driving characteristic as those. Obviously not super quick, only 104 horsepower, but because it does weigh so little, it definitely has some get up and go and some sportiness to it, of course. But yeah, I feel like it translated pretty well, the BeamNG. It doesn't. It's so different, especially like when you consider this was the original idea for the Mustang. It's so interesting to me to think about how much differently like American car culture would have been if this is what they had come out with in the 1960s. But just like a super, it handles super well, like you'd probably expect for a mid-engine sports car that weighs as little as it does. Very responsive. It's just a super cool car, and it's interesting to me to think about this car being what shapes the Mustang that we know today. I think what I might do as well in the future is like make a 2020 version of this. So like a Ford Mustang 1 2020 edition, to see what that would actually end up being like. I feel like that'd be really interesting to me. A mid-engine sports car, or American sports car, or whatever. Yeah, it's just like super cool. Again, I wish I could have gotten a V4 like the original had. You know, there's just no support for that in automation, so it just, you know, it just makes sense that I wouldn't be able to do that. But the flat 4, I mean, it sounds like really throaty and kind of cool. I kind of like the way that it sounds. But yeah, I mean, it's decently quick. It's fun to kind of toss around. You have to be careful when you step on the brakes. The rear end just wants to swing out, and you really got to be careful with that. Let's see what the top speed is. What I'm able to get up to, at least on the highway here. Probably gonna be around the 120s, I'm guessing. But fairly stable at higher speeds, you know. I'm not like super worried that I'm gonna lose control right now. Pretty stable, pretty planted. Yeah, we're up to 123 miles an hour, 124. Yeah, 127, I think, before I had to kind of stop there. Oh, we're gonna smash into that pole there. And yeah, we're smashed up right now. So I don't know. It's just a really cool little, you know, 2-seat roadster, which is man, it's weird to think about what things could have been. I mean, you see the you know, the modern Corvette obviously is a mid-engine, almost supercar. Oh geez, that was weird. But yeah, it makes you wonder. It definitely makes you wonder what things would have been like. All right, let's take this to the automation test track. Let's see what kind of lap time we can put down. Again, this is a car from the 60s, so I doubt it's going to compete with the supercars and things like that I've done. But you know, it'd be interesting to see how this stacks up. I like the way that engine sounds. Although I get a weird crackling noise. I've noticed that before with other flat, like other boxer engines from automation. I'm not sure what the deal is there, but here we go. Taking us around the automation test track. Again, I'm not expecting a blistering lap time from this. You know, probably will do better than some of the other like cars that I made from this era, from the like 1950s and stuff. I've got a couple of cars that I've made from that era as well. But yeah, I mean, for a 1960s car, it definitely handles decently. The brakes, oh, okay, yeah, again, you gotta really keep in mind, the tail is gonna like come right out as soon as you start to step on the brakes. You really gotta be mindful of that. Maybe I should, maybe I could adjust the brake bias a little bit there. Maybe put a little bit more towards the rear so that it doesn't step out like that quite as much. But yeah, definitely. I don't think we're gonna get any lap records in this car, but it's just super cool, you know. I just really like it's a really cool sports car. I don't know. Now, obviously, like for like safety regulations and things like that, you could see how this probably didn't fit the mold of what was allowed in the 1960s. Actually, really surprised I held on to that drift. That was a little sketchy, but yeah, not too bad there. You know, I'm assuming that if this were to actually make it into production, you'd have like a big front and rear bumper instead of just like the blank, you know, setup we have here. Definitely makes this look a little bit alien for the time, maybe a little bit modern as well, honestly. Oh geez, that's not a good turn there. Oh man. All right, you know what? Again, because this is not gonna set a blistering lap time. I'm just gonna roll with it because I didn't crash, but yeah, I should probably, before I post this mod, I might have to adjust the brake bias some so it's not quite so squirrely. It definitely just wants to like swing the rear end out as soon as you step on the brakes. But we should be right under, you know, looks like 248. So, you know, definitely not a fast time. Is that the slowest time that I've recorded? It isn't. Okay, yeah. So like I said, it's faster than that hot rod that I made a little while ago. It's so, you know, it's better than like the cars from the 1950s. I probably could have gotten a little bit faster lap time if the brakes worked better. But overall, not too bad for a 1962 Roadster with 104 horsepower. Pretty solid. Let's take this drag strip. Again, I don't think it's gonna put down a blistering quarter-mile time, but I just want to find out. All right, back at the West Coast USA map at the drag strip as we normally do. Again, not expecting the fastest quarter-mile time for a car with 104 horsepower, but yeah, it should do okay. All right, let's see. Definitely taking a while to get there. But we're looking at a 15-second quarter mile. Not too bad, actually. Let's see. Yeah, again, faster than that hot rod that I did, and that one had, I think, like 400 horsepower or something like that. Faster than the Roadster that I made as well a little while ago. Not that much slower, well, than the Parade Float, but that was that car was 7,000 pounds or something stupid like that. That was hardly a car meant for top speed. But yeah, a decent quarter mile time. I mean, like 15-second quarter mile time in the 60s, pretty fast. But yeah, let's take this off of the car jump and see how far it can fly. All right, and you know what we're doing here. We're at the car jump arena finally to see how far this thing can fly. And yeah, let me know in the comments if you want to see me try to recreate other interesting, unusual, noteworthy concept cars in automation. I have a couple other vehicles in mind that I really want to get to, but this is just the first one that I wanted to try out simply because of how different it was from the model that actually came out. Again, I think I did a pretty good job with it, but if you want to try it out for yourself, I'm going to put a link in the description for the mod in BeamNG so you can try it out yourself. Of course, if you like this video, if you want to put a like on it, that'd be super cool. If you want to subscribe to the channel, I'm going to try to do more videos like this, maybe. Yeah, let's just see how far this thing goes off of the car jump arena here. Now, because it is so lightweight, it'll probably go a fair distance. It's going pretty quickly. Let's see, 150 miles an hour is where it's topping out at. Yeah, we're gonna go almost to the 400 mark. That's pretty impressive for this car here. And into the pool. Yeah, so there's the Ford Mustang concept from 1962 as created by me in automation. Let me know how you think I did, and I hope you enjoyed this video and enjoy the rest of your day. See you in the next one. Thank you. Goodbye.